The chamber drifted in the shadow of a dying star. Outside the transparent crystalline walls, the neutron star pulsed like a cosmic heartbeat, cold, relentless, ancient. Its light bent strangely, warping the silhouettes of the massive structure orbiting it. The Galactic Council Hall had been placed here deliberately. A reminder. Power did not simply exist, it endured. Inside, hundreds of representatives filled the vast circular tiers. Some were solid, armored in chitin or metal. Others shimmered as energy fields, their forms barely contained. A few resembled no known biology at all, floating masses of shifting geometry. Languages layered over one another, filtered instantly by translation nodes that whispered meaning into every mind. At the center, a raised platform of dark stone hovered above a silent abyss. That was where decisions were made, where civilizations were judged, and where they ended. Commander Elias Rook stood alone on that platform. He felt the weight of the chamber pressing against him, not physically, but in expectation. Every species here had faced this moment once. Most had bowed. The ones that hadn't no longer existed. Rook kept his hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was simple, dark, unadorned except for a small insignia on his chest, the mark of the United Earth Directorate. It looked almost insignificant among the alien grandeur. A ripple of quiet conversation spread through the tiers. Fragile species. They advanced too quickly. They lacked discipline. Rook heard them all. The translators were efficient. He ignored them. Above him, on the highest tier, the ruling body shifted into view. The High Executors. Beings who governed more than 300 species across known space. Their authority was not questioned. It was enforced. At the center of them sat Vaithran. The being did not resemble anything human. Its elongated form seemed carved from obsidian, its surface threaded with faint lines of violet light that pulsed slowly, like veins carrying something other than blood. Its eyes, if they could be called that, were narrow fractures of brightness, fixed directly on Rook. When Vaithran spoke, the chamber stilled. Commander Elias Rook of Earth. The voice resonated, layered, as if multiple tones spoke at once. Your species stands before the Galactic Council for integration. The word hung in the air. Integration. Rook knew what it meant. Every human in the Directorate knew. It wasn't a partnership. It was submission formalized. We acknowledge the Council, Rook replied, his voice steady. Not loud. Not defiant. Simply present. A murmur moved through the chamber. Calm. Too calm. Vaithran leaned forward slightly, the violet lines along its body brightening. Then you understand the terms. A gesture, almost imperceptible, triggered the projection above the platform. A holographic display unfolded in layers, rotating slowly. Data streams, resource charts, territorial maps. Your species will provide tribute, Vaithran continued. In exchange, you will receive protection and sanction status within Council space. The display sharpened. Annual delivery of refined stellar cores. Access to your outer defense networks. Transfer of 3 strategic systems under Council oversight. The final line appeared. Compliance ensures survival. Silence followed. Rook looked at the projection. Not hurriedly. Not as if weighing options. He simply observed it, as though confirming something he already knew. Around him, reactions varied. Some delegates watched with detached curiosity. Others leaned forward eager, as if expecting entertainment. A few, very few, seemed uneasy. One species, crystalline in form, flickered with faint pulses of light. Pity, perhaps. They will agree, a voice whispered somewhere above. They always do. Rook raised his head. His gaze moved from the projection to Vaithran, then across the tiers. Hundreds of species. Hundreds of histories. Most of them shaped by this moment. He thought of Earth. Of oceans that had seen war long before humanity reached the stars. Of cities rebuilt from ash. Of conflicts that had nearly ended everything, and the stubborn refusal to stop anyway. Humans did not survive because they were stronger. They survived because they didn't know how to quit. Vaithran spoke again, its tone now edged with finality. You will respond. No room for delay. No space for negotiation. Rook stepped forward. It was a small movement, but it echoed in the vast chamber. All attention narrowed onto him. The weight intensified. He felt it, and let it pass through him. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly. No. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber reacted. The translation nodes processed the word, converting it across hundreds of languages. The meaning spread like a shockwave. No. The simplest answer. The most impossible one. A low vibration rippled through the tears. Not sound, reaction. Confusion. Disbelief. Some forms shifted abruptly, others flared with sudden energy. Vaithran did not move. Clarify, it said. Rook didn't hesitate. No. The same word. No elaboration. No explanation. The effect was worse. A species near the lower tiers recoiled, its elongated limbs pulling inward. Another emitted a sharp burst of light, an involuntary signal of alarm. They refuse. They don't understand. They must not understand. But Rook understood perfectly. Vaithran's form darkened, the violet lines pulsing faster now. No species denies the Council, it said, each word measured. You have been given the terms of your survival. Rook met its gaze. We heard you. Then you accept the consequences. Rook's expression didn't change. We already did. That landed differently. Not defiance. Not ignorance. Certainty. A pause stretched between them, thin and dangerous. Then Vaithran rose. The movement was slow, deliberate, and the entire chamber seemed to react to it. Authority condensed into a single point. Humanity is declared in defiance of the Galactic Council. The words carried weight. History. Finality. Tribute is mandatory. Refusal constitutes hostility. The chamber dimmed slightly as the neutron star's light shifted outside, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. You will reconsider, Vaithran continued. Or you will be corrected. A threat formalized. Rook inclined his head slightly, not submission, not respect. Acknowledgement. Then we're done here. Gasps, translated, interpreted, rippled outward. No species ended a council audience. Not like this. But Rook turned. He didn't wait for dismissal. Didn't ask permission. He simply walked across the platform, each step measured, unhurried. Behind him, the chamber stirred, the first signs of something unfamiliar threading through the reactions. Uncertainty. At the edge of the platform, Rook paused for just a fraction of a second. Not to look back. To listen. The chamber was no longer unified. Voices overlapped, questions forming, assumptions cracking. For the first time in a long time, the council was not in control of the moment. Rook stepped forward, leaving the platform behind. As the exit corridor sealed behind him, the noise of the chamber cut off instantly. Silence returned. He exhaled once, steady and controlled. They think we're afraid, he murmured. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his expression. Good. He continued down the corridor, the distant pulse of the neutron star echoing through the structure. Behind him, the most powerful council in the galaxy struggled to understand what had just happened. Ahead of him, humanity prepared for what came next. The consequences arrived before the message did. Across human space, long-range sensors registered a sudden silence. Trade relays that had once buzzed with alien transmissions went dark one by one. Navigation beacons blinked out, their signals severed without warning. Automated ports along the outer colonies reported cancelled routes, revoked permissions, and closed corridors. Then the official declaration reached Earth. It came through every channel simultaneously: military frequencies, civilian networks, even private communications. The message was simple, translated perfectly into every human language. By decree of the Galactic Council, the species designated humanity is placed under total sanction. Trade is suspended. Movement is restricted. Compliance is required. The transmission ended without signature. In orbit above Earth, the Directorate Council chamber filled quickly. Not with panic, but with urgency. Screens ignited along the curved walls, displaying reports from across the system. Outer colonies confirming blockade protocols, one officer said. All Council-aligned vessels have withdrawn. Supply lines from the Varen sector are gone, another added. They're isolating us. At the center of the room, Commander Elias Rook stood beside a circular table of shifting data. Around him, leaders of Earth's unified command debated in tight, controlled voices. They expect us to break, Admiral Sarah Kane said, her tone sharp. This is pressure, nothing more. Pressure that will escalate, replied Minister Halvorsen. Our economy is already reacting. We're not ready for a prolonged isolation. Rook remained silent, watching the data streams. Routes collapsing. Alliances dissolving. Predictable. They won't wait long, he said finally. Sanctions are just the opening move. Kane crossed her arms. Then the next step is a strike. Yes. The room quieted. They'll choose a target that sends a message, Rook continued. A colony far enough to seem expendable, but visible enough to prove their reach. Halvorsen frowned. You're assuming escalation is inevitable. Rook met his gaze. It is. A pause followed, heavier this time. Then we should negotiate, Halvorsen said. We can still. No. The word cut cleanly through the room. Rook didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. If we concede now, we don't buy time, he said. We surrender it. Permanently. Kane nodded once. He's right. Halvorsen hesitated, then leaned back, tension still evident. Rook turned to the central display. Activate Phase 1. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of the operators hesitated. Commander, Phase 1 hasn't been authorized for full deployment. Rook's expression didn't change. It is now. Kane stepped forward. You heard him. Execute. The room shifted. Uncertainty gave way to motion. Commands relayed. Systems unlocked. Hidden layers of data unfolded across the display. Fleet positions that hadn't existed moments ago. Weapon platforms marked as inactive. Defense grids labeled experimental. Halvorsen stared at the projections. How long has this been in place? Rook didn't look at him. Long enough. Far beyond Earth, in the outer reaches of human-controlled space, the colony of Aster Reach drifted quietly around a dim blue star. It was small by galactic standards. A scattering of habitats, mining platforms, and a modest defense ring. Nothing that would draw attention. Which was precisely why it had been chosen. The first Council ships emerged without warning. Space-bent, distorted by the arrival of vessels far larger than anything humanity had officially recorded. Their forms were angular, precise, built for dominance rather than efficiency. Weapons arrays extended like silent threats, glowing faintly as they powered up. Inside the command vessel, Vaithran observed the colony below. They have not responded, one of its subordinates reported. They will, Vaithran replied. After this. The fleet spread out, surrounding the colony with calculated precision. Begin demonstration. Energy gathered along the leading ship's forward array. A focus beam ignited, cutting through the void toward the nearest defense platform. Impact. The platform disintegrated instantly, its structure collapsing into fragments that drifted uselessly into space. No resistance. No retaliation. Vaithran watched, unmoved. Continue. Another beam charged. And stopped. The display flickered. Interference detected, a subordinate said. Source? Unknown. The colony, silent seconds ago, came alive. Defense grids activated in synchronized bursts. Not scattered, not reactive, coordinated. Energy shields expanded outward, locking into a lattice that wrapped the entire colony. From beneath the habitats, structures unfolded. weapon systems that had not appeared on any Council intelligence reports. Vaithran's gaze sharpened. Engage! The fleet fired. Beams of concentrated energy struck the shields, colliding with a force that should have shattered them. Instead, the lattice held. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shields adapted. Energy dispersed, redirected, absorbed. What is this? The subordinate demanded. Vaithran did not answer. Because the humans hadn't counterattacked yet. That changed. From the shadow of the colony, small signatures emerged. Not large ships. Not imposing vessels. Fast ones. They moved in irregular patterns, impossible to predict, their trajectories shifting mid-course without warning. Track them. We can't lock. The first Council ship exploded. Not from a direct hit. From within. A precise strike, delivered through a gap no system had registered. Another followed. Then another. The human ships didn't stay. They struck and vanished, slipping through blind spots, exploiting angles that shouldn't have existed. Adjust targeting. Predictive models failing. Vaithran watched the battle unfold, its calculations running faster than the display could update. This wasn't resistance. This was preparation. Fall back, it ordered. The command rippled through the fleet. Ships disengaged, retreating from the colony, their formations breaking for the first time in recorded history. Behind them, Asta Reach remained intact. Damaged, but standing. On Earth, the command center remained silent as the final data came in. They've withdrawn. An officer confirmed. Kane exhaled slowly. We held. Halvorsen stared at the screen. We pushed them back. Rook didn't react. They weren't expecting it, Kane said. No, Rook replied. They weren't. He stepped closer to the display, studying the retreat patterns. This wasn't a full assault, he said. It was a test. And we passed, Kane added. Rook's gaze hardened slightly. We showed them we're not helpless. Halvorsen looked at him. Isn't that enough? Rook shook his head. It's just the beginning. He turned away from the display. Prepare the message. Back in Council space, the fleet regrouped in silence. Vaithran stood at the center of its command chamber, the data streams reflecting across its dark form. Losses. Not catastrophic. But unacceptable. Human capabilities were underestimated, a subordinate said carefully. Vaithran remained still. Yes, it said. A pause. Then we escalate? Vaithran's gaze shifted, focusing on something beyond the immediate data. They were ready, it said. Before we acted. The implication settled heavily. They anticipated us. No one responded. Because there was only one conclusion. This was not defiance born of desperation. It was intention. Vaithran turned back to the display. Prepare full mobilization. The words carried weight now. Not routine, not inevitable. Necessary. On Earth, Rook stood alone in a quiet chamber, watching the stars beyond the glass. A message confirmation blinked on the console beside him. Sent. He didn't need to read it again. He already knew the words. Simple. Direct. The same tone as before. We warned you. Rook allowed himself a brief pause, his reflection faint against the stars. They think this will end quickly, he said softly. His gaze hardened, fixed on the distant points of light. It won't. Behind him, the machinery of war continued to move. Not in chaos. In design. Humanity had made its choice. Now the galaxy would learn what that meant. The war did not begin with a single strike. It unfolded everywhere at once. Across human space, long-range sensors ignited with signals, hundreds of them. Council fleets emerged from distorted folds in space, their arrival precise, coordinated, overwhelming. They did not probe this time. They did not test defenses. They came to end the conflict. On Earth, the Directorate Command Center dimmed as tactical displays flooded the chamber. Red markers spread across the projection sphere, each one representing an incoming force. Admiral Sarah Kane stood at the center, arms locked behind her back, eyes scanning the map. "They're hitting all sectors," she said. "Simultaneous engagement across 12 systems." A junior officer hesitated. "We can't match that scale." Commander Elias Rook stepped forward, his expression composed. "We don't need to." Kane glanced at him. "Then we need to be very precise." Rook nodded once. "We already are." He gestured to the map. Several human fleet markers shifted, not toward the enemy, but away. The officer frowned. "We're retreating?" "We're repositioning," Rook corrected. "Let them take empty space." The first clashes were brief. Council fleets advanced with calculated dominance, their formations tight, their firepower absolute. They expected resistance at key points, planets, stations, defensive rings. Instead, they found silence. Abandoned outposts. Evacuated colonies. Systems stripped of anything valuable. "They're withdrawing," one council commander reported. "No engagement." Vaithran observed the data from its central command vessel. "They are avoiding direct confrontation," it said. "Cowardice?" a subordinate suggested. Vaithran did not respond immediately. "No," it said after a moment. "Strategy." The distinction mattered. Human fleets did not vanish. They dispersed. Small groups moved through unguarded sectors, slipping between council formations. They avoided detection not by stealth alone, but by unpredictability. Their paths made no sense. Their timing defied standard models. They were not reacting. They were shaping the battlefield. At the edge of the barren expanse, a council fleet advanced toward what had been marked as a major human shipyard. The structure was still there, drifting in orbit around a pale gas giant. Silent. Unpowered. "Scan confirms no activity," an officer reported. "Abandoned." The fleet moved closer. Then the shipyard lit up. Not with production systems, with weapons. Hidden arrays unfolded from within the station's frame. Energy signatures surged outward, locking onto targets before countermeasures could activate. The first volley struck the lead ships with surgical precision. One vessel fractured instantly, its hull splitting along a line no scanner had predicted. Another lost propulsion, spinning helplessly as secondary impacts tore it apart. "Return fire!" The council ships unleashed a barrage, overwhelming, destructive. And hit nothing. The shipyard shifted. Sections detached, rotating, reconfiguring in motion. What had appeared to be a static structure broke apart into smaller, independent units, each maneuvering with surprising speed. "They've turned the station into a fleet," an officer said, disbelief creeping into the tone. The engagement dissolved into chaos. Human units struck, withdrew, reappeared from unexpected angles. Council targeting systems struggled to adapt, their predictive algorithms failing to lock onto patterns that did not repeat. Within minutes, the fleet was forced to disengage. Reports like that multiplied. A convoy ambushed in deep space, its escorts neutralized before they detected the attackers. A communications hub disabled without a single direct strike, its systems overridden remotely. A heavily armed task force drawn into pursuit, only to find itself isolated and surrounded. The Council's advantage, scale, coordination, overwhelming force, began to fracture. "They refused to fight directly," one commander said during a tactical briefing. "They scatter then strike." Vaithran listened, silent. "They are not fighting to win battles," it said. The chamber quieted. "They are fighting to control the war." On Earth, the atmosphere in the command center had changed. The tension remained, but it was sharper now, focused. Kane studied the latest engagement reports. "We're bleeding them," she said. "Slowly, but consistently." "They're adapting," an officer warned. "Their formations are shifting." Rook stepped beside the display. "Not fast enough." He highlighted several regions on the map. "They rely on prediction," he continued. "They expect patterns, consistency. Remove that, and their advantage disappears." Kane glanced at him. So we keep them guessing. Rook's gaze remained fixed on the projection. We keep them uncertain. The turning point came without announcement. A council stronghold, positioned at the convergence of several major routes, served as a critical hub for fleet coordination. It was heavily fortified, surrounded by layered defenses and guarded by multiple capital ships. Untouchable, by all conventional measures. Which was why it was chosen. Human forces did not approach en masse. They arrived in fragments. Small groups scattered across different vectors, each one insignificant on its own. The defense network registered them, flagged them, but did not prioritize them. Until they acted. The first strike targeted the outer sensors. Not destruction, interference. Blind spots opened, small at first, then widening. The second wave disrupted communications. Signals fractured, commands delayed, coordination slipping. By the time the defenders recognized the pattern, it was too late. Human ships emerged from the gaps. They did not attack the defenses. They ignored them. Instead, they moved straight for the core. Intercept! A council commander ordered. The fleet responded, but the timing was off. Orders lagged, formations misaligned. The human ships reached their target. A single, precise strike. The core went dark. Not destroyed. Disabled. Every system in the stronghold shut down simultaneously. Weapons, shields, propulsion, all offline. The structure drifted, powerless. Silence spread across the battlefield. The human ships did not finish the job. They withdrew. The message was clear. They could have destroyed it. They chose not to. In the council chamber, the atmosphere had shifted. Where once there had been certainty, there was now tension. Not fear, not yet, but something close. They are dismantling our systems, one delegate said. Not with force, but with precision. They are demonstrating control, another added. Vaithran stood at the center, its form still, its gaze distant. They are rewriting the rules, it said. No one argued. Because it was true. Back on Earth, Rook stood alone before a smaller tactical display. The stronghold icon remained on the map, dark and active. Kane entered quietly. We could have ended it there. Rook didn't turn. Yes. Why didn't we? He watched the silent marker for a moment. Because this isn't about winning a single battle, he said. It's about ending the war. Kane studied him. You think they'll understand that? Rook finally looked at her. They already do. Far across council space, Vaithran received the final report from the stronghold. Disabled. Not destroyed. It stood in silence for a long moment, the data reflecting across its form. They had the capability, a subordinate said. They chose restraint. Vaithran's gaze narrowed. Not restraint, it said. Control. The realization settled, heavy and undeniable. This was no longer a conflict of strength. It was something else entirely. Something unfamiliar. Something dangerous. Vaithran turned toward the distant projection of human-controlled space. For the first time, the outcome was not certain. And that, more than anything, was a problem. The war ended where it had begun. Not with a battle. With a decision. The Council's core system burned with quiet tension. Dozens of fleets held defensive positions around the Central Authority Hub, a massive structure suspended in orbit above a white star. Energy shields shimmered across its surface, layered in overlapping fields designed to withstand any assault ever recorded. No one believed those defenses would be enough anymore. Reports had been arriving without pause. Fleets lost. Systems disabled. Strategic nodes cut off from coordination. The pattern was undeniable. Humanity was advancing. Not recklessly. Not chaotically. Deliberately. Inside the command chamber, High Executive Vaithran stood motionless as the latest projections unfolded. Human signatures had entered the system hours earlier. They had not attacked. They had simply arrived. They are holding position, a subordinate reported. No weapons active. No aggressive movement. Range? Vaithran asked. Within strike distance. A silence followed. They are waiting, another voice added. Vaithran understood. For the first time in its existence, the Council was not dictating the pace of events. It was responding to them. On the human flagship, Commander Elias Rook stood before a wide viewport, the Council's core station framed against the brilliance of the star behind it. The light washed across the bridge, casting long shadows that shifted as the ship adjusted its orientation. Behind him, Admiral Sarah Kane reviewed tactical data. All units are in position, she said. We can end this. Rook didn't move. I know. Kane stepped closer, lowering her voice slightly. Their defenses won't hold. Not after what we've done to their networks. Rook nodded once. Agreed. Then why wait? He turned, meeting her gaze. Because destruction isn't the goal. Kane frowned. It might be the only language they understand. Rook considered that. Then we give them a choice, he said. A choice? Rook moved toward the central console. Open a channel. The transmission cut through every system simultaneously. Council ships, command hubs, civilian networks. Every receiver lit up with a single signal. Clear. Unencrypted. Intentional. In the council chamber, the display ignited. Commander Elias Rook appeared, standing alone against a dark backdrop. No insignia. No rank markers. Just a human. Vaithran watched without interruption. This is Commander Elias Rook, the message began. Representing humanity. His tone was calm. Measured. The same as before. We are within range of your core systems. You are aware of our capabilities. A pause. Not dramatic. Deliberate. We will not issue threats. The chamber shifted slightly. Confusion flickered across several delegates. Because we do not need to. The statement settled heavy. Rook continued. You demanded tribute. Control. Submission. His gaze remained steady. We refused. No emotion. Just fact. You responded with force. We adapted. Images flashed briefly across the display. Council fleets disabled, systems shut down, strongholds rendered inert without destruction. Now we stand here. Another pause. Not to end you. The chamber stilled. But to end this. Vaithran leaned forward slightly, its attention narrowing. Rook spoke again. No tribute. No enforced compliance. No hierarchy of control. Each condition landed clearly. Equal standing. Mutual respect. Independent sovereignty. A faint shift of his expression, something almost human, almost personal. Or we continue. Silence followed. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted. They cannot dictate terms. They are one species. They are within range of our core. They've already proven. The voices overlapped, rising, conflicting. For the first time in centuries, there was no unified response. Vaithran remained still. Silence. The word cut through the chamber instantly. All sound collapsed. The High Executor considered the situation. Human forces had not attacked. They had not demanded surrender. They had offered terms. That, more than anything, was unexpected. They are testing us, one delegate said cautiously. They are offering resolution, another countered. They are forcing our hand. Vaithran spoke. They are giving us a choice. The distinction mattered. Because the council had never been given one before. Moments later, a response was transmitted. On the human flagship, the signal appeared without delay. Kane looked toward Rook. It's them. Put it through. The display shifted. Vaithran's form filled the screen. Commander Rook, it said. Your conditions are unacceptable. Kane exhaled sharply. Of course they are. Rook raised a hand, silencing her. You cannot dismantle a system that has governed this galaxy for millennia. Vaithran continued. Order must be maintained. Rook's expression remained unchanged. At what cost? Vaithran did not answer immediately. Without structure, it said, there is chaos. Rook stepped closer to the display. And with it? He asked. There's control. A pause. Fear, Rook added. The word lingered. Vaithran's form shifted slightly, the violet lines along its surface pulsing faster. You misunderstand, it said. We ensure stability. Rook shook his head once. No, he said. You enforce obedience. The silence that followed was different. Sharper. More dangerous. Stand down, Vaithran said. This is your final warning. Rook met its gaze. No. The same word. The same tone. But now it carried something else. Finality. Kane turned toward the tactical display. All units ready? Rook nodded once. Execute. The command rippled outward. Across the system, human ships moved in perfect synchronization. But they did not fire. They reached. Signals surged through the void, not weapons but code. Complex, adaptive, designed for a single purpose. The Council's systems reacted instantly. Defensive grids activated. Countermeasures deployed. Too late. The signals bypassed them. Not by force. By understanding. Control systems flickered. Weapons arrays powered down. Shields collapsed. Across the entire core system, every Council asset went silent. Not destroyed. Disabled. Complete. Absolute. Silence filled the void. In the Council chamber, the displays went dark. One by one, systems failed. Not catastrophically. Cleanly. Controlled. They've shut everything down, a delegate whispered. Vaithran stood motionless. For the first time, there was nothing to command. Nothing to control. The human transmission returned. Rook stood as before, unchanged. We could have destroyed you, he said. No emphasis. No pride. Just truth. We didn't. He let that settle. Vaithran's image flickered back into view, its form dimmer now. Why? It asked. The question was simple. But it carried the weight of everything. Rook answered without hesitation. Because we're not you. Silence followed. Not tension. Not uncertainty. Understanding. The decision came quietly. No declarations. No ceremony. The systems came back online, slowly, carefully. Different. The tribute protocols were removed. The enforcement structures dismantled. Not by force. By agreement. Weeks later, the chamber looked the same. But it felt different. Species stood not in rigid hierarchy, but in equal tiers. Voices still differed. Opinions still clashed. But the foundation had shifted. Commander Elias Rook stood once more at the center. Not alone this time. Vaithran faced him across the platform. Your species has altered the balance of this galaxy, it said. Rook considered that. We gave it a choice, he replied. Vaithran inclined its head slightly. A gesture that, once, would have been unthinkable. As the session concluded, Rook turned toward the exit. The chamber behind him remained active, alive with discussion rather than command. For the first time, it felt uncertain. And that was progress. He paused briefly at the threshold, glancing back once. Then he continued forward. All it took, he murmured to himself, was one word. No.